In this session, we'll discuss printing accounts payable checks. In order to print checks, we must first select invoices for payment. For information on this subject, refer to the training session on selecting accounts payable invoices for payment. Let's select Print Checks Post-Hand Payments from the Accounts Payable menu. The system now displays the check printing control screen. Here, we'll indicate the date and fiscal period to which these checks will be printed. This will default to the current fiscal period, or we can enter any open fiscal period we choose. Here we can indicate whether we wish to print separate checks by job. If we place a tick in this box, the system will cut a separate check to the vendor for each job that appeared on the selected invoice. This may mean the same vendor will receive multiple checks. The next question refers to printing contract summaries on all subcontract checks. If this box is checked, check stubs for subcontract invoices will feature a subcontract summary, including the original and current contract price and the billed, retained, and received amounts. At this point, we can indicate the checking account and the check date. The account number will default to the checking account selected during accounts payable setup, and the date will default to today's date. The system remembers the number of the last printed accounts payable check and defaults to the next available check number, although you should confirm this number by looking at the number of the first piece of check stock in the printer. The same holds true with voucher numbers. If there are any invoices selected for payment by electronic funds transfer, or EFT, for these payments, the system will create payment vouchers instead of hard copy checks. These payment vouchers can be numbered with a separate numbering system from your printed checks, so the system keeps track of this numbering system as well. Here's a list of all the checks that will be printed. If we simply click on the Print Checks button, all the checks listed in this box will be printed. We can print selected checks if we choose. For example, we may wish to quickly print out a check for one or two vendors, then print the rest of the checks at a later time. To do this, we select the Print for Selected Vendors option. We can then highlight the checks we wish to print at this time and click on the arrow button to move them into the User Selected Checks box. If any invoices have been marked as paid by handwritten check or paid by credit card during the payment selection process, this list box will appear at the bottom of the screen. Here you can view all the selected hand checks and credit card payments that will be posted during this check run. Now let's talk a little bit about the electronic funds transfer. If we have one or more invoices that were selected for payment by EFT, those items will appear with a lightning bolt icon in this column. Now we click on the Print Checks Post-Hand Payments button to start our check run. The system will first remind us that in order to print our checks, we must first put checks in the printer or switch to a different printer by clicking on the Print Setup button and selecting a different printer. We then click the Continue button, and the system will generate our checks on the printer. If we have one or more invoices that were selected for payment by EFT, during the check run, the system will print the checks first, then ask us if we want the payment vouchers printed on blank check stock or on plain paper. If we print them on plain paper, this is where our voucher numbering system comes into play. After it has generated the checks, it will ask the question, did all the checks print properly? If they did print properly, simply click Yes and continue with the rest of the posting. However, if we had a paper jam or some other minor calamity, we can click on the No button, and the system will show us a list of the checks that it thinks were printed. We can reprint checks by selecting a range of check numbers or selecting to reprint individual checks that may have been munched up or smeared in the printer. We can then click on the Continue button to start reprinting the checks. The system then prints those checks with the new starting check number, and once again asks the question, did all checks print properly? We will continue this cycle until we say yes, the checks did print properly. The system will then prompt us to take the check stock out of the printer and replace it with plain paper. We do so and press the Continue button, and the system will print our check printing posting reports. These include a check register and a general ledger transaction summary of the check posting. At this point, we have one last chance to either finish or undo our check run and posting. If we click the Finish button, then all the changes are made permanent. So we need to inspect our posting reports and checks to make sure everything is in proper order. If it is, we can click the Finish button. If it is not, we can click the Undo button, and the data will return to the state it was in before we pressed the Print Checks button. If we have one or more invoices that were selected for payment by EFT, at the end of the check run, the system saves each of these vouchers in PDF format. They can now be attached to an email and sent to the vendor as a notification that an EFT payment is being transferred to his bank account. Also, the program generates an ACH text file with all the necessary information for the bank to transfer the money. Upload this text file to the bank website, and they will make the electronic transfer. This concludes this training session on printing accounts payable checks.